Hi, everybody. I guess I'm opening this up, which is kind of weird, but that's okay. My name is Brent, and I am here with my main man, Shim, and we are going to be talking. Yeah, we're going to be talking about AEW Collision for March 29th, 2025. To start off the show, I was at AEW Collision last evening, and it was a fantastic show. And this was the fifth time that AEW was in Milwaukee. And I thought I'd give a quick little rundown of the things that have happened in Milwaukee thus far of importance or significance or just cool things that have happened because I've been to all the shows, everything. And overall, Milwaukee, as much as I always kind of say, like, oh, Milwaukee, we're probably going to be getting a bad card. Milwaukee has had some pretty mediocre matches, but some pretty cool moments and stuff like that. First show was actually the first Dynamite after CM Punk came back to AEW in 2021. It had gotten postponed numerous times because of COVID. I think it was supposed to be like April of 2020, and then it ended up getting pushed back all the way until August 2021. And it's one of the lowest ranked Dynamites on Cage Match for shows because it was kind of a stinker. The main event, as I always like to famously say, like I had to sit through a Brock Anderson Malachi Black main event, which was the main event of the show, and it was not good. It was a whole 2 minutes and 19 seconds long, and it felt like an eternity. Um, but overall, I mean, we did get the first Dynamite appearance of CM Punk. If you are a CM Punk fan, which I know not many people are anymore that at least follow AEW regularly. Um, Otherwise, a lot of that show was pretty mediocre. Probably the highlight of it was after Dynamite was done, Tony Khan came out and he brought out the Greek Freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, who this was like a month after the Bucks had won the 2021 NBA championship. So that was kind of an awesome moment, and I will never forget the moment where Tony Khan yelled out and just like freaked out, like as Tony does. It was hilarious. And then the best part of that show was on Rampage. Actually, there was a tag team match between the Lucha Brothers and Jurassic Express, which was absolutely tore the house down. It was exactly what we needed after a pretty mediocre 2 hours, and that pretty much saved the night. The next time they were there was the go home show for the first Forbidden Door. Um, Overall, kind of an uneven show. Like there's a Hangman Page versus Silas Young match. There was we did get the United Empire, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, and Will Ospreay teaming up, which was kind of cool. Because I think that was my first time ever really watching Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis. Like it was my first time seeing them in person, really seeing them work. Um, and the main event was pretty cool. It was Hiroshi Tanahashi and John Moxley teaming up. Unfortunately, they were taking on Chris Jericho and Lance Archer, so it wasn't a great match. But it was fine for what it was. And then the main thing that probably happened during that show was that was when Christian had turned against Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and that was the first time that Christian Cage gave the "Your Father's Dead" promo, which was a pretty iconic promo in AEW history.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I
Um,
remember because I think I kind of started watching AEW regularly probably about a few months after CM Punk's return. Um, so it would have been, I think it was probably November ish of 2021. Um,
okay.
and so, like, I think leading into the Forbidden Door, there was a lot of new stuff, because I had never really watched New Japan. Um, and so, like, seeing a bunch of new names coming out of there, which was real surprising for me. But also, I was, I watched WWE just like everyone, I think most people, in those like
Right.
2000s,
It's where we
and with
all start pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, and seeing Christian, I think in the capacity he's been used, uh, and I was always like a like Christian was really good. Like I think he was underrated for many years, and I think he is still underrated somehow today. When he can go out there and just put on some of the best matches, and I think yeah, the Your Father's Dead promo was brutal and dark and exactly what you want out of
It
a
was
heel.
insane to be there in person to see that. Like, just like, holy shit, did he really just say it? Like, as much as like it's one of those things when you're watching on TV, it's one thing, but when you're there and you're just like, holy crap, he just said that. Like,
Well, and I think it was especially potent because it was, obviously his father, Luke Perry, it was is someone almost everyone knows, right? Like
right,
in some
exactly.
context, like who that was. Not to like compare like apples to apples, but comparing the hits against like Buddy Wayne for when like they were first feuding
Right. Yeah.
with not a lot of people really know who Buddy Wayne was. People you can
Right.
say like, oh, he was important, he was a good trainer, uh, and he taught a bunch of
But
people.
he right, and he was important in the Seattle wrestling scene, but he never really branched out of Seattle.
Right. So like hearing like Your Father's Dead against someone like Luke Perry like, was a huge statement for sure.
Yeah. Um So yeah, that was a good show. And then the next show was in April 2023, and this was the show that I drove 9 hours for because I was in Kansas City for meetings that day, and I didn't even buy tickets. And I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna make it back. And the meetings ended early, and I'm like, if I time this right, I can make it there like right around 6:15, 6:30. So I'll probably miss a couple of the ROH tapings. I'm gonna try, and then when I waited until I got to the Wisconsin state border before I bought tickets to the show, just in case something random happened or whatever. And then I got to the border, bought my ticket, and I actually ended up sitting like fourth row on the side where the camera is, where the hard cam is. So I had a great view of the show. But again, not a ton of great stuff happened. There was a pretty good Darby Allin Swerve Strickland match, but that was kind of when Swerve was in his mogul embassy phase, so he was kind of in that weird, like, he wasn't the main guy Swerve yet. Um, there was the main event for that show was Chris Jericho versus Keith Lee, which was ultimately a pretty forgettable match because I totally forgot that happened. Um, but and I'm a big Keith Lee fan, but that was not a great match, not a great main event for the show. Um, But the absolute highlight of that taping was, during ROH, they, just they kinda they hinted towards there being, like, a big match for ROH to stick around for, but they didn't really say what it was. And then it turns out that, El Hijo del Vikingo came out, and he faced Gringo Loco, and it was probably the most insane match I've seen in an AEW arena to that point. Like it was crazy. Like I legit like Tony Khan even came out after the match, hugged Vikingo, hugged Gringo Loco. At that point, I was like, holy crap! Like they're gonna sign Gringo Loco. Gringo's a Chicago guy. He's always in Milwaukee doing indie stuff too. So I've seen a lot of Gringo Loco, and I was like, "Holy cow! They're actually going to sign Gringo Loco." Well, they didn't, but it was an amazing match, and he still uses Gringo Loco from time to time. Like
Hmm.
you pretty much use it whenever has a luchador. Like Hologram made his debut, bring in Gringo Loco, and you know that he's going to shine him up real good.
Yeah, yeah. I think I that was at one point where I was watching ROH a little bit more regularly, and Vikingo is obviously he's great. His match against Kenny Omega was
Oh yeah.
awesome. And then Gringo Loco, yeah, I've seen him work a few matches here and there, and he's just one of the best bases in the business for all the Philly
Absolutely.
guys.
He's called the base god for a reason.
Yeah, he truly is great at that role. So I'm always happy whenever I know that he's going to be in a match. At least in AEW, I assume he's not going to win. But
Right.
he, but it's always going to be a great showing for whoever's on the other side.
Exactly. He's one of those trusty guys that you can always just bring in to make somebody look really, really good.
Yep, absolutely.
And you need those guys in wrestling. You need those guys that can take losses, but be credible opponents and just make everybody look good in the process. That's the most underrated role in wrestling, and that's why I often like in on Discord or whatever, I will often be like, you know what, losses aren't the end of the world. Like people lose sometimes. That's okay. Like as long as you have a good match and you if there's a reason for your loss and your loss is important, taking a loss isn't a bad thing at all.
Right. No, I totally agree. I'm not one of those win loss like, oh, he's now over, he's buried or whatever because someone lost. Or even if there's like not
Right.
a great reason for it, wrestling is also one of those mediums where you can take a story somewhere where you don't know where it's going yet, whether that loss turn takes you into a spiral. Similar to how Tony Storm, like Tony this run that Tony Storm is on is directly connected to her loss, right? Like,
Right.
so the whole discourse around taking a loss or losing, especially in certain contexts, like you don't want to lose to I love Serpentico, but you don't want a Kenny Omega to lose to a Serpentico, right? Like
Right.
that's one thing. Um, but to have a top talent lose to another top talent, that doesn't make them no longer a top talent.
Right. Or even if it's like a guy who's credible but not quite there yet, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those losses mean a lot if you're going to use that to help elevate this guy to this other guy to the next level.
Right.
Like you can
And
like those they need to be strategically done, but when they are, they can be done excellently.
right. And you do need that cycle of people on the show. You know, Hangman may need to take a vacation or, one thing or another, and you may want him to lose on his way out to have someone elevated a little bit on his way out. Not even out the door permanently, but like just to bring into the picture. And I feel like AEW does that really well when you look at like a lot people complain about AEW having like so many tournaments, which I feel like their tournaments are credible. It's not like
Right.
paper tournaments. Um, where it's like, oh, these are people that are all very good.
They're not doing number one contender for the United States Championship, so that match is going to be on Smack or on like SmackDown next week or something like that.
Right,
Like there's
exactly.
a reason for the tournament that the winner of that is important and is going to be featured as like in a bigger match.
And in a tournament setting, only one person's going to win that whole thing, and that's okay. You
Right.
can you can have people lose and still be perfectly fine, but that's probably a whole conversation in itself.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, no, anyway, well, yeah, what you're saying is totally right. And I mean, there's a reason why, like, the G1 Climax is important for New Japan, and it's not necessarily because the winner of the G1 Climax faces the champion. That is
right,
by far the most important part of it, but it's all the sub stories coming out of the tournament that provide, the next 4 months of storylines and build to Wrestle Kingdom as well. You have other champions in the tournament. They're losing in the tournament. Then all of a sudden, that person that beat them has a credible shot at becoming at that other championship. There's
right.
reasons why these things happen, and they're important.
Yeah. And it's not just, oh, we had the match and lost, now move on and split. Like you can use those losses or victories, to put someone over as being arrogant because they beat him in the round robin part of the tournament or who knows what else, right?
Sure,
So um
absolutely.
there's just a whole lot more that you can use these tournaments for versus just getting to the match you want at the end of the day.
Sure.
But any
Then the
but
next. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but yeah, Gringo Loco and Vikingo. What a great match for ROH.
Yes, absolutely. The next Dynamite in Milwaukee, the fourth show, was the infamous show where Hangman burnt down Swerve's house. That was the build up, the lead in, the go home show to All Out 2024. And that was, again, an amazing moment to be there for in person. The rest of the show, yeah, it didn't really hit on all levels. We got a pretty decent Okada Kyle Fletcher match. Um, Otherwise, some of the other matches weren't meh. They were fine for what they were. Um, we did get Will Ospreay in a 6-man tag, which was a pretty good 6-man tag. It was the Blackpool Combat Club versus the conglomeration, Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, with teaming up with Will Ospreay. That was probably the highlight of the show match wise. And then that was the shortest taping I ever went to because they didn't tape. They did 2 dark matches before the show. I think they did another dark match after, or no, they didn't. I think Brian Danielson just came out after. But it was at least kind of cool because I was like right on the entrance way. So I got a selfie with Brian Danielson on, at that show. So that was an amazing moment for me because, I mean, granted, I have gotten like professional photos with him, but it was just kind of cool to be like, hey, got a picture with Brian Danielson. He had just won the AEW championship in London, which was the show that I also was at. So like, wrestling meant a lot to me too, and it was just kind of cool to be like, hey, this, it was just the great moment for me in particular, for that. Otherwise, yeah, it was kind of a besides the Swerve uh, Hangman segment, which again was a huge moment in AEW history. It was kind of just like the rest of the show was just kind of there, but it's kind of been the trend with Milwaukee in some capacity where it's just like, hey, we get fine matches or good matches, nothing like phenomenal. We haven't seen like a 5-star match at an AEW show in Milwaukee or anything, but then like really cool moments that have been there. Even the one show I didn't I missed that in the Gringo Loco Vikingo show. That was the show where Jeff Hardy came back after his DUI and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
That was a pretty crazy moment for people that like the Hardy Boys. And then we also got the Sting MJF promo, which really didn't end up going anywhere. It was still kind of a cool promo because, like, hey, it was Sting. So,
Right. Yeah.
um, so yeah, and then the fifth show in Milwaukee that AEW put on was last night, Collision.
And there is no
Um,
way anyone can say that that card was mediocre.
I mean, going into the show last night, it was a little like I was reading comments, and there were some people that were just like, "Oh, there's like." If you look at the show and you're like, okay, you get Big Bill and Brian Keith versus Top Flight, you get Wheeler Yuta versus Dax Harwood. Like there's some matches that were just like they're not like you're not going to tell your grandkids about the time you saw Wheeler Yuta versus Dax Harwood. But at the same time, like everything had potential to be pretty good. And then it seemed like throughout the day, we got more of an inclination of like, oh shit, this is going to be a good show with like adding Hologram and Blake Christian, and then ended up having to swerve into Jamie Hayter and Billy Starks wrestling and everything. So we'll talk about all that in a little bit
Right.
here. The rundown of the show. But first, you want me to do the segment that we're talking about?
Sure. Yeah. Those
All
are
right. Friend of ours that we talked to here, Andy, had the idea of a segment called Who, and I thought it'd be fun to debut it now because we kind of have a perfect person to talk about in Kevin Knight. Many people that watch AEW exclusively may have seen Kevin Knight. He's done matches for ROH and the like throughout the years. He's shown up, I think, a few times. He's shown up on Impact a few times. He had a match recently against AR Fox that was for a number 1 contender shot for what, like the TV title or something like that.
I think that's right. I think that's
Uh,
right. And I think he was in. I want to say he was in either something surrounding Forbidden Door. I don't remember if it was a New Japan show, but with like heavy AEW integration. But I think it was him and Kushida versus someone on the AEW side at
okay.
some point. So I want to say we AEW has seen Kevin Knight a few times just never highlighted, I think, exactly how he probably should be now, and I think they did a good job last night.
Yeah, so Kevin Knight is a guy. He's wrestled primarily for New Japan. If you look at like his cage match report or whatever, you see a lot of New Japan matches. He's never really been a singles guy in New Japan. I mean, he's wrestled singles matches, obviously. There's never really been like a ton of like standout singles matches. He hasn't really gotten the singles push there. It's mostly been his tag team with Kushida as the time splitters. Is that what they are? No, that's Alex Shelley. I can't even remember what they're jet setters. That's it.
Yep.
Jet setters. They're two-time IWGP tag team champions. Um, but again, he never really got like a big push in the Best of Super Juniors or anything like that, or a singles shot at the title. Like I think he maybe has gotten matches at the for the title, but never like always. This is the time where Kevin Knight's going to be the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion or anything like that. Um, he's a guy that's mostly got on my radar actually last fall. Me and some friends went to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, and that was the first time I ever really got to see him live doing what he does best. And it was kind of at that moment where I was like, "Holy cow, this dude needs to get signed like by somebody," because he is watching him in those matches. And one of the matches was actually him and Kushida. Um, no, yeah, it was him and Kushida in a with Aiden Prince taking on Rocky Romero, Rohan Raja, and Rohit Raju. And like watching that match, like as good as Kushida is, watching Kevin Knight in that match was like watching LeBron James play pickup ball at the YMCA. Like it was insane seeing Kevin Knight like in that match. Like you could tell like his level of competence in the ring was far above everybody else's opponents, whatever. And I know Rocky's a competent opponent, but just this athletic ability that Kevin Knight has, everything that he was doing, he was flying around the ring. He did that spot where when he did in this Jay White match last night, I was like that is the absolute spot that he needs to hit where the person is sitting on the top rope and he comes and he like is on the floor and he does a hurricane rana off of him. It's like fantastic spot that he does. It's like one of his five moves of doom or whatever you want to call him. But when he hits that every single time, it's impressive and it's just like one of the most crazy things like when you're thinking about just how the hell does he jump that high to be able to like make that move look decent is very impressive.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
think along those lines, just I think anytime a wrestler hits a move that looks like it needs to have extreme precision, and they do that on a regular basis, and it looks good on a regular basis, it just puts that over the top.
right, absolutely. Um, So yeah, so Kevin Knight is he's a freaking stud, and I know like WWE was interested in him. I know AEW was obviously interested in him, and his New Japan contract ran out, and AEW luckily signed him. And I know I'm trying to think like if there's like a match where I can be like, holy cow, this is the match that you need to check out for Kevin Knight. I don't really think he's got that kind of wrestling resume to this point. I know he had a really good match with Speedball Mike Bailey in Impact a few years ago that I saw, and I think he wrestled Speedball in New Japan too, but I do not remember that match for the life of me. But I do remember this Impact match that he had in 2023, and so yeah, I think you can probably find that because Impact's pretty good about putting their stuff online. I haven't checked beforehand to see if you can find it, but I'm pretty sure you can find that match, and I think that gives a pretty good impression of like what we're going to be looking at here with Kevin Knight, and it shows him up against a now AEW talent, which is still crazy to me that Speedball signed with AEW, but yeah,
Yeah, I think I know every year we get some new signings in AEW. In 2024, and like these last few years have been like, boy, there's some cream in the crop signings AEW has gotten over the last couple years. And I think Kevin Knight is going to go down as a tremendous pickup for AEW that was a little bit out of nowhere, or at least like he's kind of like a semi unknown talent for like the North American audience.
Right.
And I think he's gonna, he's I looked up some. He's 28 years old, so he's pretty young. He looks great. He looks great, physically and in the ring. He can go. Like he's a guy. He's another name on the roster. You're like, this guy can be around for 10 years, and at the top of his game.
Oh yeah,
He's only going to get better from here, ideally.
absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I don't know where exactly Kevin Knight's gonna fall in the grand scheme of things, because AEW has a ton of talent. But at the same time, like, they can let him still work New Japan. They can still let him, work some indies if he wants to. But having him in their back pocket to just be like, hey, you know what, we want to have a banger match, or hey, we're gonna start pushing you, or something like that. Like, there's a lot of potential for Kevin Knight in the long term with AEW.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think there's the. I think not to say it's only uphill from here, but I feel like there's a bright path ahead of him.
Totally agree.
But with that, I think we can get into the top of the show.
All right. Do you want me to take the lead on
Uh,
things? Is that what we're
yeah,
doing?
I
Okay.
can lead into it.
Okay.
So Collision started. We get straight into it, and we have Tony Storm. Music goes off. She comes down to the ring and gives a Tony Storm promo like she ever has, and talking about Megan Bain. Obviously, Megan Bain has attacked her, I think, 3 times previously on shows now. I think, and they're setting up the match for
Sounds right.
Dynasty, and her promo gets interrupted by what I think was one of the best camera shot foots to the face interruptions, and I I've seen in a while. I'm not going to say it's the best ever. I have seen people online claim it was one of the best ones ever, but it was a really great crane camera shot. It wasn't
Yeah.
using just the
Yeah.
hard
So
cam.
it was really cool to see them set that up too. It was like, 'cause it was weird, because I was like looking at the ring, and all of a sudden, like, you see the crane, like, because normally they don't use that camera for those kinds of,
Right.
like, they don't bring the camera over the crowd like that very
Mm-hmm.
often. And to see them, like, do that, and then to see, like, Tony, like, go up to it, and it was just like, holy shit, this is a crazy moment. And then, yeah, like, Billy Ford just coming out of nowhere and just kicking the shit out of her face. Like, that was fantastic.
So with you being there, did it obviously, there being there, there's always like you can kind of see how things are potentially being set up.
Yeah, you can
Uh,
usually see kind of how. Yeah, exactly.
but it on TV, I don't know if you've gone back and rewatched it or watched it on social medias, but it looked great on TV.
Sure.
I don't know what
I,
was that what
I,
was
I, I've,
that kick like in person.
I mean, I've seen like the recap of it or whatever, because they kind of showed that, like, the replay or whatever. I saw
Hmm.
that in the arena. Um, I mean, the kick, it was great. I honestly did not, like, I knew something was gonna happen, but I
Hmm.
did not see, like, normally you're like, oh yeah, there's the other person, you see the person coming down the ramp or whatever. Like, Penelope Ford literally came out of nowhere. I did not see her. I don't know if I was just so engrossed by Tony Storm's, so captivated by her performance, but I did not see Penelope Ford coming until she was standing on the ring, and then I'm like, oh shit, and then cow right in the face, and that was the one thing I like about Tony Storm. And I didn't, it's hard to tell sometimes, but it looks like I mean, Tony Storm does not mind working stiff at all, and it looked like that kick looked like it connected pretty good, but I don't know for sure. Um, Either way, it looked like a million damn bucks, and then to see the Mega Sis come sneak in from the other side was awesome, and to have the beatdown occur, that was just a great moment. Great. They're doing a tremendous job setting up this feud. I feel like Tony Storm's first title run, like her feuds with like Thunder Rosa and Deonna Purrazzo, like were good, but I feel like this one is just next level for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I like Megan Bain so much.
I think there's a few things to it personally. You know, being the kind of person I am, I think I like to analyze things and break it down. But I feel like the big things here that's different is obvious this is coming off of the Mariah May feud, which you would think this would be like a cool down feud in a way to
Yeah,
like reset some things. You know, we went way over the top with Mariah. Now you're coming into then you're like, okay, well she's champion. She's not going to lose this first feud. That's like that's the wrestling trope. And they're
right.
I think that's still going to hold true, but they're not presenting it that way. This is
No,
the fourth attack by Megan Bain, where Tony has been left on the ground, which is usually not the sight you see with like your champion, right?
right. Normally the champion looks strong, or I mean, they'll have moments where they're weak or whatever, but not this consistently.
And
And
the one thing I noticed as of I think it was Wednesday or the previous attack, which I think was Wednesday. My mental timeline is not always the best.
yeah,
Megan Bain has changed her F5 or Fate's Descent a little bit, a little bit over time, and I think she's finally landed with it. It looks fantastic, rather than like kind of the traditional flip off and kind of fall back or like just stand tall. She like is going down to like a I would call like a superhero pose, like down on one knee with like the fist on the floor, kind of
okay,
position. She's done the last couple of times, and I think that looks great. It looks, you know, that strong, like, and like flip off, go to the ground, you're down, and like she can, you know, raise her head and still looks strong looking forward. Um, so I think Megan Bain's looking at $1 million. Obviously, they're selling her as they should because she is a strong powerhouse, and I think she's great for the division. And I would like for her to talk a little more. You know, like there was like the slight comments of Tony Storm 2 weeks ago, I think it was, saying that she doesn't talk that much. I think I would like to see a little bit, just a little bit more out of her in that sense. But in the ring and during those segments, she is just presented otherworldly.
yeah. She's a force. I, I don't really mind that she doesn't speak. I think sometimes there's too much talking.
Yeah,
I think if you have a solid ass kicker, like sometimes actions speak louder than words. Like I think the highlight thing they did was like last week or something like that, where she did
mm-hmm.
like a
The
voiceover kind of
voiceover.
promo thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah, like something like that works.
it definitely that was definitely like the right direction. I don't necessarily need a live like in front of crowd promo, but
Yeah,
I
we
feel
don't
like
you
just
don't need a Megan Bain town hall or anything like that. We just yeah.
exactly like even if it was just like a few lines, you know, just like a few, just you know, almost like the almost how they use Shibata, where he's kind of like in a promo, he says like a couple lines, they're intimidating, he looks good. Like they could do something along those lines with her, and I think that would be enough. I don't need her.
Sure.
I don't need her MJFing up a promo, but just like a little bit, I think could go a long way.
Yeah, I could see that. It's not a bad direction to go into at some point. Like at some point, she's gonna definitely need to. For this feud, I don't know if she really needs to, because Tony Storm
Yeah,
can kind of carry it with her words, and Megan Bank can carry it with her actions. Like it kind of works good as a yin and a yang. Where
but
like, yeah, in the future, Megan Bank's probably gonna have to, when she's stuck in her inevitable Thunder Rosa feud or something like that, she'll probably have to do some more speaking. But
yeah, I mean, you're definitely right there. I'm not disappointed. I guess I would not want to give that insinuation because I think she's been presented good. Tony's Tony. Like I don't know how she is, or but she's always great. And I think she
yeah,
makes the most out of her time. And if there ever was a historical, you know, women's transition, I think it's like it is Tony Storm. Like Mercedes, like coming from WWE to AEW, Mercedes, it was huge. She is huge. She was great. She still is great. Um, but Tony Storm was, not to say she wasn't good in WWE. I didn't watch it. But she wasn't utilized to be great. And
she was
I feel
just
like,
like shit in WWE.
yeah. And now how she's been used in AEW and being able to be presented is, it's like it's where Ricochet is right now. Like that's the comparison I would make.
Yeah, it really kind of shows the how they get kind of pigeonholed in when they're
Mm,
working for WWE. And I mean, this does happen with AEW too
sure.
sometimes. I'm not, yeah, I can't say that they're not at fault for doing kind of the same things, but I feel like AEW does take more risks with people like a Ricochet or like a Tony Storm that just kind of do get pigeonholed into, well, they're a good wrestler and they do good matches and they don't really bring much else to the table.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And, like for the longest time, I don't know if I ever heard Tony Storm really speak when she was, in NXT
mm-hmm,
or WWE. Like she just kind of was there, the rocker chick, like woo,
mm-hmm,
and like maybe she'd say a line or two, but there was never anything memorable character wise there. It was just kind of her doing the same thing she was doing in Progress and all the indies before signing with WWE, and kind of the same with Ricochet. He was just kind of the cool, the dude who did cool flips and stuff, and that was really it.
yeah, and I mean, Tony Storm has had what, four different noticeably like huge different characters in AEW. Like obviously Rocker, they had the Outcast, they had kind of insane Tony, timeless Tony Storm, and then kind of
Yeah,
this,
the bridging point between the two characters. Yeah,
yeah,
that was.
um,
I think that's when I really started liking Tony Storm. Like when she would just like, I still remember because I was All Out 2023. Yeah. Um, like I remember her coming down during the pre-show. It's like I think they had like a women's like clusterfuck kind of match, like a six-woman tag or something like that. And Tony Storm like came out, and she was just like standing there in her like without shoes on or anything like that. And it was just like, huh, this is like just like she was acting all like frazzled and whatever. And that was after like all the after she lost the women's championship, all that stuff, and it was just like, and just seeing that, like there was just like, I'm standing there, like she's literally standing 5 feet away from me, and I'm just like, something really like you could just tell like there's like a lot of potential for something amazing here. They just have to
mm,
figure it out, and fucking they did. They just
yeah,
really
they
did
did,
in a big bad way.
they
Oh.
did. I think, yeah, Tony Storm has had, and I think she's like I said, I think she is. I'm not gonna say she's the most popular women's wrestler in the world, but she's. I feel like the one people you
No,
can
that's
point
that's
at.
definitely still Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, it is. But it's like you can like point and be like, okay, yeah, this is. She's like made a name for herself, and in such a huge way in the last couple years. Like probably, I would say, let's just say like the probably the biggest, like most improved over like the last, in terms of like industry stock, over the
Oh
last few
yeah, big
years.
time.
Just a tremendous talent. Um, And then, but yeah. So, anything else we want to talk about with this Megan Bain before we continue gushing over uh, Tony Storm?
Yeah, I think we're good talking. Moving on
All
here.
right. So next we had a kind of backstage promo segment with the Death Riders, starting with Claudio, kind of threatening Cope for his match next week, and led into what I thought was a surprisingly good promo with Marina Shafir for the little bit that she had. How did that come across live while you were there?
I think everybody in the building was scared of Marina Shafir in that moment. Everybody felt like how John Moxley looked while that was all going down. Like, uh, I am an unabashed mark for Marina Shafir. I've been a Marina Shafir defender for a long time. Granted, I can't defend the "You Know Me" promo, but like seeing her on the Indies and in company, I went to one Revolver show in Iowa, and it was her versus Speedball Mike Bailey. And granted, Mike Bailey can make anybody on the planet look good. Like that match legit changed my opinion on Marina Shafir and her wrestling and everything like that. And I'm like, all she really needs is a shot to work her style.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is like her style isn't really what they do so much in AEW or ROH or anything like that. And it's hard to translate that sometimes. Um,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
like that she just needed to be a silent ass kicking kind of person who just is very intense and just beats the shit out of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think finally, like, as soon as she showed up with Moxley, I was like, this is perfect. This is what she needs to be doing. And then to see where this is going, to see this is finally building to a match after a year, which I feel like it probably shouldn't have taken this long to
Yeah.
get to this point. But we're finally here, and everything is clicking for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have always been a little bit mixed on Marina because I think it's to the points that you made realistically is that AEW hasn't been exactly the right spot for her. I feel like a lot of the people that AEW has had when she was around having matches wasn't able to do like the more technical style or like just striking matches. When I saw her
Right.
at one of the blood sports, I don't remember which blood sport it was. Um, I was like, holy crap! Like she is good. It's just she needs to be able to do that on screen, on TV, and I feel like it's never really been there uh, for her. And while I wholeheartedly think that like this match, she should have had more matches during this Death Riders period, even if they were mostly squashes. Just being like, just going
Yeah.
out there, giving her a 3 minute match where she's stomping someone's face in. Like,
Right. Like, yeah, they did. So after, I guess spoilers, but after the show, Marina Shafir did wrestle an ROH match against Nixie XS, and it was basically that. It was a 2.5 minute long. Marina Shafir just kicking the shit out of her, and it was like, yeah, that's exactly what it needed to be, and that's what
yeah,
they should have been doing more of this along the way, whether it's on yeah, probably not on Dynamite, whether it's on Collision, whether it's in ROH, whether it's
sure.
wherever. Like they probably should have done more. Get her some more reps. Get you more familiar with her just beating the shit out of people.
Yeah, just a few here and there. It didn't need to be regular, but I think that is what was needed. I'm definitely really looking forward to her match with Willow. I love Willow. Who doesn't love Willow? Um,
Everybody loves Will.
and I think that match is going to be good. And I think where she's going, this is definitely the right direction for Marina. But we'll see how things continue. I don't foresee the Death Riders surviving the summer. So again, I kind of feel like at least as like the champions surviving the full summer. And so I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes. I hopefully she's able to maintain that persona in some fashion and keep it moving forward because it's definitely the right direction.
Yeah, I think there is some untapped potential there. It's just whether or not it's going to work in AEW, but that's, it's not I don't think it's a necessarily a hurt. I think a lot of people in the past have said like, "Oh, just Marina Shafir's not that good." I've had
Mm-hmm.
many arguments about this. Um, when literally after All Out 2024 and like the car ride home, I snapped at a dude in the back seat with me because he's like, "Why is Marina Shafir part of the thing?" He goes, "She's terrible," and I'm like, "Dude, she's not terrible. She's awesome. Like they just haven't given her the right moment. Like, go and actually watch her stuff." And you'll
I
see, like, go watch her Defy matches, go watch her
Yeah,
Revolver matches, go watch her Bloodsport matches. Like, she's legit really good. She just doesn't click here. Not
right.
a sports entertainer. She's a wrestler.
Right. I feel like her matches have always looked um grimy in like a shoot sense of like if you're actually in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fight, you're not gonna look super clean, right? Like if you're in an actual fight, like you're not gonna be able to hit some things perfectly smooth. And I feel like the way her matches usually work is like they're just that right amount of grit and time to them, versus being super clean. Uh, and that's kind of where maybe some people lose out because it looks as though she's not able to do things well. I don't know. I like I said, I'm a
yeah.
little mixed
I know
in.
what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It is a very you're not going to get the same type of match out of her as you are going to get at Chris Statlander or
Right.
Mercedes Moné or whatever. Like they're much better technical in the ring wrestlers, but like
Hmm.
Marina Shafir is like a wrestler.
Right. A
Like
fighter. Like right.
it's
Yeah.
right. So it's a different thing altogether. But I'm excited. Hopefully this match on Wednesday goes down really well and puts a bigger spotlight on her. I'd be
Yeah.
good with that.
Well, speaking of spotlight on someone, this next match goes to our highlight segment of Who Tay, where we finally had the debuting Kevin Knight versus Jay White, who they have a slightly storied history, somewhat, of knowing each other, but I believe this was a first time match between the two of them.
I mean, I would believe that it would be. I haven't researched it, but I would assume it would be just because Kevin Knight was, a Super Junior and Jay White was a heavyweight, so they never really would have faced off in New Japan besides maybe being in like six-man tags or whatever together.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I believe they mentioned that on the commentary that it was a first time match between the two, a singles match. I think they said they have
sure,
like yeah, like in larger more than two people matches because multi man matches are a
yeah.
horrible description of a wrestling match.
I like multi-man matches to describe matches that contain like six wrestlers or more, but I mean, I get how you can twist that nomenclature to mean whatever you want it to mean.
No, I know it's one of those. It makes total sense until you think about it, and you're like, wait, yeah, you're right. Uh, but yeah, this match was, in my opinion, really solid. It shined a great shine on Kevin Knight and his abilities, like you mentioned earlier. And Jay White is, I mean, he's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was exactly what it needed to be. Kevin Knight got some shine. It was a lot of chopping.
Yeah.
Um, there really wasn't like a ton of other stuff. It got more like um I'm trying to think of the word, like more technical than I kind of thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a little bit it was very much it wasn't your typical Jay White match where he's like countering moves and doing stuff like that necessarily. It was a little bit more spot heavy or whatever. There was a weird moment though where like Jay kind of bounced off the ropes and kind of like stood there and Kevin Knight was kind of getting ready for the next spot and then Jay White was kind of like but then they like ended up going to like a weird arm drag thing and it was just I don't know if that was like and on an accident or whatever. That kind of seemed like the most like counter work that Jay White was doing, but then it kind of just led to a weird spot. Like I said, I don't know if that was intentional, on purpose, just two guys working together for the first time, just not like being on the same page. I don't know, but overall, I mean, I had fun watching the match. I love watching Jay White work. 'Cause I do think he's an interesting performer, and his style is very different from a lot of other people's styles, where it is very counter based.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Knight is just an athletic freak. Like watching that dude do a drop kick, and like I think he actually overshot the drop kick from what it looked like. Like I think he like actually kind of like hit him in the forehead or hit him like above his head. Like it was just crazy to see how big, how tall that dude or how high that dude jumps.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's great. Like I said, Jay White. I like you said, like he's such a different style than you'll see of just about anyone else. And the attitude I think comes across in his style. Um, and after this match, which Jay White won, he declared himself into the Owen, which this Owen cycle, which we'll get into on both the men's and women's side over the course of this episode, especially on the women's side, is stacked this year.
Yeah, it's exactly what it needs to be, and I feel like they have to go with like almost like a 16-person tournament in a way here because it feels like there's a lot of names added and like more that should be, and like they have time to do it too because it seems like last year it kind of seemed like they kind of kicked the can down the road of the Owen until like Forbidden Door, which was the end of
Mm-hmm.
June, and then they kind of just it seemed like they kind of rushed it all to finalize, and then had like time where there was just nothing really going on with it. But this year it feels like, hey, they could just kind of start this all after Dynasty and then build it into either the finals at Double or Nothing, or they could even extend it more into the summer and do the finals like if whatever they're talking about with this 4-hour Dynamite thing, like they could build the finals to that as well. Like they have
True.
time to give this all breathing room instead of like, hey, we gotta get this done really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a 16-man tournament obviously takes a lot of, I don't remember, I can't think of the math right now, but let's just say twice the amount of matches. I think it's over twice the amount, but
Yeah,
uh,
it's a 15 instead of 7.
yeah. So it is a lot more matches. That's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it also could give space for some of these debuting talents that that need to show off a little more, to show off a little bit more. We had Kevin Knight obviously last night, and that could potentially be in there if it's up to 16 men. There's a lot of people that I think could be plugged into that. Um,
And all of them would be deserving too.
yeah, absolutely. Um,
And even then, it
and
gives you a guy. Yeah, it gives you freedom to throw in, a guy like Mark Davis or somebody
True,
like that. Like, it isn't going to necessarily win, but like, man, like Mark Davis has been kind of killing it recently. Like, I'd love to see him in there.
he is. I think Mark Davis is one of those like guys that you look at and you're like, oh, he's just like a bruiser type guy, which is exactly what he is. But there's just
Yeah.
some moves that he hits, like
Oh,
his
those pile
pile.
drivers are fucking phenomenal.
It's so good looking. It's like him and Brody King with his Gonzo bomb, like those kill
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, and you can plug those guys into a spot like that, and they're gonna shine up whatever match you put them into. So yeah,
Exactly.
we'll see on Wednesday. They're showing the bracket, so we'll see how big this tournament is. If it is just 8, that's a tight 8. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
I, I predict.
And like the other, that, yeah, the nice thing about 16 people too is it gives it gives your main 8 a better chance to shine too, because they're not
Sure.
necessarily just going into the tournament and losing right away.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like I think it makes sense that we see a debuting Josh Alexander inside this Owen Hart Cup. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's really a much there's not really a much better way of introducing them than just, hey, throw them in there and have them beat somebody.
yeah, it definitely I think come in, win one match, probably lose then. Uh, Against at that point it would be like a top talent. So it's like again goes back to our
Right.
conversation earlier. Like that loss isn't going to hurt him. Um, Losing
Yeah, what
against
was
an
the one thing?
Osprey is not going to hurt you.
Yeah. Right, exactly. You have them come in, like one person said, you have them come in, beat like Kyle Fletcher, like pull an upset, and then have them lose to Osprey, and it's just like that's a pretty big spot. And I mean, Alexander and Osprey had that amazing match in
Mhm.
Impact or TNA, I guess technically it became at that point, but they had that amazing match and just run that shit back, and that's how you make a superstar right there.
Yep. And speaking of other people inside the Owen, MJF uh, throwing out the first pitch at the Rangers game. I think what it would have been Thursday is when it happened.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and which was is I like seeing more AEW talent doing more of these, you know, PR things at sports events that we've seen WWE do for years. These kinds of things are just great to see.
Oh,
MJ
absolutely.
in MJF being in Happy Gilmore coming out in June, I think it is, and a lot more people doing more of these Hollywood and big PR things is just great for AEW. Great free advertising. No, I don't know if it's free. I would assume it's free, mostly free advertising.
Nothing's ever free, but yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, no, it's great. It's great because like people are saying, "Oh, why isn't AEW hyping up MJF throwing out the first pitch?" It's like, why would they do that? The entire point of MJF doing that is to is for like them to plug AEW to the Rangers audience because they're going to be playing or they're going to be doing all in at that stadium, and that's
Right.
great advertisement for 40,000 people that live in that area to see. Oh yeah, here's this wrestler. Oh, there's this show coming here. Oh, cool. Like maybe we'll go to that show in July. Like,
Never in
why
the
would you
history,
advertise?
yeah, never in the
Well,
history of baseball has someone bought a ticket to a game because of who's throwing out the first pitch.
I wouldn't say that's not necessarily true, but 'cause I'm pretty sure there's been times where people like I know people that have gone to the baseball game because like Giannis has thrown out the first pitch or something like that for the Brewers, but that's a different story.
Fair,
Giannis is just like a beloved superhero in Milwaukee, so that's a
sure,
little bit different.
that's fair. Uh, Obviously, maybe a little bit of hyperbole there, but um, yeah. So, and then backstage, or then we get us a quick tease before the next match of Athena continuing her tweet harassment of Mercedes online before Mercedes' match against Robin Renegade. And obviously, this is going to
Yes.
plug into the rest of the show uh, for the most part, because Athena is, I would say, a central focus to this entire episode.
Yeah, I mean, this was very much sometimes there's shows where they're like, oh, like back when Cody first showed up on Raw, the entire show revolved around, oh, when are we gonna get Cody again? Or like the Cody countdown or whatever. Like this very much felt like the like where's Athena? Like as soon as she showed up, then it became like, oh, are we gonna see Athena again? Like it very much became like, hey, let's like they very much put the shine on Athena the moment she showed up, which is exactly what you needed to do for a person that basically had AEW matches before, but basically she's re-debuting in AEW and like is a legit star in the company that hasn't really been there, and this was a perfect way to bring her back into the fold.
Yeah, absolutely. If in the long run this payoff, comes down to, we're leading to Athena versus Mercedes match for the TBS title. I personally am one of the people who thinks Athena should have won this title against Jade, 2 years ago or whenever that was, when she first debuted. Because I think she had the personality and ability then. I don't know if just more trust and whatever has come into her favor from her period on ROH. But there's a lot of force behind Athena now, and I'm glad it's there.
I kind of wonder if some of that was they just didn't want to have they didn't want to pigeonhole themselves into the company where, hey, this person comes from WWE and beats the homegrown AEW star. That's kind of like the trap that TNA fell into, like when
Mm-hmm.
they would bring in like Kurt Angle or Christian Cage or whatever. They would immediately bring them into the title picture, have them beat the current TNA champion. It was just like they kind of just continuously buried their own talent in favor of like the new shiny guy who
Sure.
worked for WWE. I think that was maybe was the thought process there, where like, hey, we'll use Athena to help get over Jade Cargill as like this is our star. This is our Jade Cargill is like AEW, and AEW is better than these old WWE people.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. And I know that sentiment has been around for a long time. Uh, but it's like you just got to pick and choose when to do that. And I would
Yeah, no,
not have
I
been
totally get that.
I would have been perfectly happy with Athena coming in and doing that, especially
Yeah,
in hindsight.
the problem with yeah, right. I was gonna say the problem with the entire thought process is just you're doing that with Jade Cargill. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But anyway, so Mercedes has her match with Robin Renegade, um, which was a solid match, I would say. Um,
it was exactly what it needed to be. It
yeah,
was like what 3 minutes long or something like that, and just for me, it was cool to be like, hey, we're getting a Mercedes Monet match. I wasn't expecting a world beater by any means,
sure.
but I just was happy to be there, happy to do the CEO dance, and and always good to see one of the goats of the women's division.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, after this match, we have Athena coming out to face Mercedes. And definitely this is leading to a match somewhere, or I guess they have. Uh, it, it's not announced yet for Dynasty, right?
No, they haven't announced. Uh, at least as far as
Anything.
they didn't
Yeah,
announce anything inside of the arena, so I assume it's not for Dynasty, but it definitely could be.
yeah. I mean, definitely.
I
It's
would probably
definitely.
slow burn it a little bit longer, honestly, but
Yeah, I
especially
don't.
if what Sean Ross Sapp said was true. I don't know if we can talk about that or not, but
Uh,
um, let's just do it because we're all in the
yeah,
Discord, right? Or
yeah.
most of us. So he basically said Mercedes versus Athena in the Owen tournament,
Mm,
and like
I
if
missed
that's your
him say
first
that.
round match,
Okay,
okay, yeah, he said
that
that
makes
in the
sense.
Ask Us the Rest thing. Um, so like if that's where that match is building to, and then you have whatever outcome, and that builds to a TBS match, like that's
Right.
interesting proposition, and yeah, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the things we have in play right now is obviously the Owen Hart tournament. We have Super Card of Honor, since Athena is the ROH Women's Champion. I would not be surprised if Mercedes shows up there for whatever match Athena's going to have on that card. Um, which the Super Card of Honor is always a great show to watch, even if you don't
Oh, yeah.
watch ROH regularly. That's always a terrific card. Um,
Most of the time, none of that matters because they don't build anything up on ROH anyways.
that
So
you're not long. You're not wrong. But yeah, and then obviously, I think everyone in the at least the IWC sees the match at All In between these two um, for I think where maybe Mercedes finally loses the TBS title. Um, so whatever this trajectory is for these two women, just sign me up. I'll be there watching the whole thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think that all of this would make sense with Mercedes losing the TBS title to Athena, because then then you have uh, the ability to then go into Rev Pro's big show, their anniversary
Yeah,
show in August, and have Mercedes Moné drop the belt there, and then she could drop the New Japan Strong Women's Championship at Forbidden Door, and all of that would make sense. And you're not going to ever lose those championships before you lose the AEW belt anyway. So
right.
like all of that timeline wise would make a whole lot of sense as well.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out at the end of this little post match spat, if you will, uh, Athena just always hits that O face in such a way that I don't understand the physics of how she so precisely lands that move so consistently.
It's gotta hurt the old tailbone too. Like, god dang.
Yeah, but it's just like how she always, I mean, she's just jumping at like the right spot, because it's one thing to like hit like a missile drop kick or whatever. A little bit of, the person can kind of move into position better, but ideally, like the person is
Right.
kind of facing away from her. She's jumping kind of almost in front, over and in front of them to land into like the stunner position, and it's just like I don't understand how she can do it
Yeah.
so regularly and make it always look good. Um,
Yeah, it looks like $1,000,000, and it's phenomenal. I'm surprised
uh,
she hasn't transitioned out of that, to be honest, but maybe at some point she will.
yeah,
But
I wouldn't
yeah,
be surprised, but while she still can do it, she definitely should. Um,
like,
anyway, after that, we had a small backstage segment where they announced Queen Amanada has a wrist problem where she was not cleared for her match against Jamie Hayter. That was advertised, and they had a good, in my opinion, a good segment here with Deeb, where they're kind of continuing the story between her and Deeb, saying, well, Deeb's history of a technical wrestling, she could have gotten her to win the match and come out uninjured. Uh, yeah, kind of what are your thoughts here between Amanada and Deeb?
I mean, it's a perfectly fine, like, mid-card filler feud. Like, I don't mind it really at all. It gives Serena Deeb something to do. It gives Queen of Banana more screen time, which I am always a fan of. Um, and it's fine. It's a good spot for Serena Deeb to be in. I'm not always, pining for more Serena Deeb on TV, but if they're gonna use her and they are gonna use her in a spot where she's there to put somebody over, like, Queen Amidon is a great person to put over in a
Mm-hmm.
feud, and I think Serena Deeb has just kinda always suffered from, like, hey, they're using her, and then she goes away for 6 months, and then
Yeah,
they start bringing her back again, and then she goes away, and then it's just, like, very inconsistent, but if they're willing to consistently, like, put her in a spot like this, where she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you wrestling stuff," and the other person just beats her and whatever, and, like, gets better for it, I'm good with it, especially if it's just a if it's just a small thing on Collision or whatever, just a filler feud. There's nothing wrong with that. It gets another women's match out there. It gives you a storyline. It gives you good stuff. It gives you Queen Aminata. Who would ask for more?
yeah. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think Deeb has suffered similar things to Diana, in that I think AEW suffers from women that can do technical wrestling. Um, and I think, if I remember correctly, which my memory isn't always the best, Deeb and Aminata had a match, I think, towards when Aminata was first debuting, and it was a really, really good technical match. Obviously, Aminata's still a little green, but I think her having that highlight, and I think having that good basis, and having Deeb as a coach to bring more technical women to the forefront and improving in that genre of women's wrestling on the AEW, I think is really great.
I totally agree.
And yeah, so after that, we had the next match of the night, which was the Learning Tree in the form of Big Bill and Brian Keith against Top Flight, which wasn't a match that I don't think anyone had, high betting odds on, but I thought it was pretty good. Obviously, Big Bill
Yeah.
is big as ever. But yeah, what was it like there in the arena or theater or
Uh,
whatever the building was called?
uh, the the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena. It was good. Top Flight's kind of over because even though they're from Minnesota, a lot of people kind of have seen them on the Indies or whatever in the area. I know I've seen. I saw. I think it was Dante as Airwolf. Um, back in at like some Mondo Lucia shows and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so they definitely had their contingency of fans there. Big Bill definitely had some Big Bill fans there. Brian Keith really didn't have a lot of representation, which I feel bad about. But I enjoy Brian Keith. But yeah, Big Bill was there's one moment where like a small Bill can't bust it out for some reason, and then he ran over or he kind of like walked. He was when he was like in the corner, he would just kind of like walk up and down the ring, and then the small Bill can't bust it out. He kind of walked over. He's like, "No, I'm big." Like he like pointed like how he needs to do like the 7 feet tall thing. It was just really fun. So he had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, it was a good. It was a perfectly good tag team match for what it needed to be. It wasn't a it wasn't a top crazy tag team match by any means, but it was exactly what it needed to be. A solid 10-minute tag team match that helped. It really helped. I think both teams kind of get over because Top Flight's kind of been one of those inconsistently used teams for a while there,
Mm-hmm.
and Brian Keith and Big Bill they're trying to establish, and I think it served the purpose that it needed to do, and Big Bill and Brian Keith are the next tag team championship challengers. Then this was a very good win for them, and I'm excited to see what potential they have as a tag team here in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was surprising for me that they won clean. I was not. I was the
Yeah, I
general
thought the
the
crew was gonna kind of screw that
yeah.
up more.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some interference with the crew. I personally thought that they were going to win, although wrestling knowledge would say, well, the faces are going to win. Um, which obviously the Learning Tree are in a mostly heelless position, but Big Bill's over, so you know,
Right.
that's it's a little bit harder to play that line, and I think that the story I see coming out of this and possibly into the future with Big Bill, and I think this would be a good spot to use him in, is he's a Swiss Army knife of tag team wrestling. Meaning, I don't think his teams are going to last forever, but I think he's always going to be a
Sure.
competitor in the tag team division with whatever partner he gets partnered up with. So, like he had the artist formerly known as Ricky Starks as his tag team partner when they were tag team champions before, for a short little run, and then they lose him, and obviously he didn't have his partner anymore. He now has his partner in Brian Keith. If they do, I don't think they manage to take out the Hurt Syndicate, but I do see that's the story I see with Big Bill at this very moment, him being more of a just a big guy you can put with anyone, and they can successfully tag team with each other.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with your take there. I think Big Bill is one of those guys. Like when AEW signed him, I'm gonna be completely honest. I was just like, it felt like at the time was just they were just signing people to sign people,
Sure,
and
yeah.
because like WWE is interested in them, but like it was like Big Bill had that one match in AEW, and then like everybody was just like, oh, WWE is interested in signing William Morrissey, and then it felt like AEW was just like in a spot where they had to sign him to keep him away from
Mm-hmm.
WWE. It was just like a lot of politicking. It just felt like, why are they signing him? Like, he had a good match, but it's just like I don't really see him fitting in. And I think for a little bit there, he did kind of struggle to find his groove. But now I think he's really hitting on a lot of cylinders, and clearly the audience is responding to him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, against the general flow of what you'll see online, I think the Learning Tree has been an overall success of a project for Chris
oh, I totally
Jericho.
agree.
Um, where I think at least between these two guys with Big Bill and Brian Keith, I think Brian Keith could have landed a little bit higher, but he gets his TV time, he gets his matches. People do like him. Uh, and so I think this experiment with the learning tree in the long run will go down as a very good Chris Jericho experiment, which isn't always true. Although I do think people take credit away even in the worst ones. With the inner circle, I think was overall pretty good, but the Jericho Appreciation Society, I think a lot of people put down a lot more than they should in the long run. Um, but yeah, I think we will be gearing up for a Big Bill and Brian Keith match against the Hurt Syndicate soon, probably maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's probably gonna be like the Dynasty match, which is fine.
Yeah. Um, and then after
I
this
think I, th-
match, oh,
I
sorry,
think
go
the
ahead.
hard thing is the Hurt Syndicate kind of just a hard tag team to match up with, and AEW's tag team division right now isn't
Yeah.
really it's not in a great spot because like the Young Bucks aren't really around,
Mm-hmm.
and like there really isn't a lot of like super credible tag teams that like what do you do? And then you have the Hurt Syndicate or just two overpowering dudes that you can't just throw like small guys up against.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know, like
I've had this take for a little while where I think the story of how to take down the Hurt Syndicate needs to be a tag team that works as a tag team. Um,
sure.
where I don't think the Hurt Syndicate come off as a tag team. They are two really good singles wrestlers that are working together, right? And not to take that away from them, like not to like disparage them in that manner, but just to say like they aren't working as a tag team. They are just two guys that are going to beat down people on average. In
Hurt
any
people.
two right in on average, any two guys facing Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are just going to get beat down if they're two v two. But I think the story needs to be a tag team comes together to really work as a team to take down the Hurt Syndicate. Who that is, I don't know. Uh, but I think that needs to be the story told.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually, like we'll see. We'll talk about them later, but I think FTR kind of makes the most sense. But I mean, right now they're clearly not on the same page. So
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So like after this match, we did have the crew come out and almost try to choke out Top Flight again, but AR Fox shows up and kind of just they back off, which will come up a little bit later again. Then we jump backstage to a Jamie Hayter interview with Lexi, and where she is talking about her main event match tonight against Billy Starks. Um, But yeah, I don't remember the exact highlights, but I mean, Jamie Hayter is great. Uh, I think
Yeah, I love Jamie Hayter.
it doesn't seem like she's
I'm so
lost
glad.
her. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm so glad that she's back and that
Yeah.
she's got this visa issue sorted out and whatever, and back, and hopefully, man, I would love if she would get a, because obviously she declared for the Owen Hart
Mm-hmm.
uh, tournament in here, and I would love if she would make a serious run or maybe even potentially win this. Like, I think she's phenomenal, and her match recently at Pro Wrestling Eve, Alex Windsor kind of brought a lot more attention to Pro Wrestling Eve. It brought more attention to Jamie Hayter and Alex Windsor, obviously, and that was a tremendous match. And I think there's a lot of potential there with Jamie Hayter that they haven't really gotten to uh, in her. She's come back, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that's going to start here soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think she's tremendous. And just seeing what I think she can do in the ring, and we'll talk about that a little bit later more as well. Trying to speed up a little bit given the time. Uh, we have the face to face with Adam Cole and Garcia in the ring, which was just a verbal standoff. I think mostly just setting up that their match at Dynasty is going to be no interference. Do you think that
Yeah,
holds true?
I think it does. I I don't really know. I haven't really even thought that much about it. I would assume that it probably will, and I would assume that Adam Cole's probably going to win this one, but it can really go either way. And overall, though, that segment was honestly when they announced like, "Oh, we're gonna have an Adam Cole Daniel Garcia town hall," I was just kind of like, "Oh, this could be bad." But the crowd was for this segment. They were hot for Undisputed Era. They were hot for Danny Garcia. Like
Yeah.
it ended up being a much better segment than I thought it was going to be going into it, because it was just like, oh, this has potential to be not great, but everybody seemed to get into it, and it accomplished what it needed to. And everybody loves Daddy Magic in Milwaukee. He's like the most over person on the planet in Milwaukee for some reason. I don't know
You,
why, but like
you,
everybody fucking loved Daddy Magic.
you know, when you say that, when I was watching it live and the crowd started cheering, I couldn't tell if they were saying Danny or Daddy. Uh,
Oh, it was definitely Daddy.
okay. Which I'm all for. I love Dead Magic. Uh, I do think in this, I think I would lean Adam Cole winning this match as well. Um, and I think Garcia has held up his end of what's needed for him, like kind of at this stage. He's still young, long career ahead of him, hopefully. Um,
Oh, absolutely. The world is his oyster at this point, and like, and while this TNT title run hasn't been anything like super memorable, like I feel like that is a good. Sometimes winning a title is just important for the resume, and I feel like
mhm,
just having that kind of be there and have him have this get this first championship, this first AEW championship under his belt. Obviously, he's
mhm.
won titles in ROH before, but having that first AEW championship on his resume is a good stepping stone for whatever's in Danny Garcia's future.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, after that segment, we had a quick backstage segment with Athena and Billy, where Athena, went off at Mercedes and had a quick interaction with Billy as well. Kind of Billy's hyping up her match at the end of the night against Jamie Hayter, who's now the main event. And it seems like there's still, a little bit of that dissension between the two of them, which has been brewing for what, a year and a half now in ROH.
At least, yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think this is just another backstage segment where you can see that Athena is truly like the center of, I think, this episode tonight.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Part of me, conspiracy theory Brent over here, part of me wonders if Queen Amanada was really hurt or not.
You know,
Because I feel like all of this makes a lot of sense with Billy Stark stepping into the main event, Athena showing up. Like, there's a lot of like,
Oh, that goes along with this, where it just felt almost too perfect to spotlight Athena in so many different spots like that.
I had that thought as well, and I think I had that thought for a couple reasons. But there's one big thing that I think pushes me away from it being that is that AEW typically doesn't like to advertise a match and pull it. And obviously, this match was advertised, at least the main event for Jamie versus Aminata. But then again, the other side of my brain's like, yeah, but that's been this whole story with Deeb as well. So it's a if she really did come out of that spot or that match last week injured, she wasn't clear for the match this week. Them plugging in this Deeb segment made almost too much sense if it was not planned, and obviously this flip to Billy, it was just like it was either the greatest swerve and having this unexpected there, or just the greatest turnaround in story that I think AEW has ever done. Usually AEW, when something needs to change, the show's great, but it's like a buffet kind of great, where it's like just everything's good. It may not need to be coherent, but like every match is like good. Was both good and coherent, which felt abnormal, which I think is more of your points.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's like I don't know. I could see it either way, and we will probably never know the true outcomes. But I think Aminata will turn out just fine.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It just all worked out. If this was a pivot, this worked out as phenomenally as it could have.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And talking about pivots though, this next match was Dax the Axe versus Wheeler Yuta in just like a really solid wrestling match, but what happened afterward was pretty important, I think.
Yeah, Dax literally had an axe to grind with the official and how the official refereed the match, and took his frustrations out on him, which led to AEW Security, aka local Chicago wrestlers. Many of them who I was like, oh, it's that guy. Who's kind of, it's always fun when when you've seen the guys before that come out as security before.
Right.
Led to him, taking care of security, as security is just known to just get beat up relentlessly and whenever they get into a match. And then amongst them, though, Cash showed up and he got shoved to the ground by Dax and led to a little bit of tension.
Yeah. I mean, Cash slapped Dax's hand away, refusing to help him up. This obviously, I think, started as a Dax heel turn, but is it just like a Cash turn away from Dax now? How's this going to play into the trios match on Sunday for the trios titles with obviously rated FTR against the Death Riders? And I think that that trios team is maybe not going to be playing from the same book during that match.
Right? Yeah, there's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of potential ways that this could all go with, if FTR splits up and we get, Cope and Cash teaming up, or we could get, who knows, or maybe like Jackson Cash figure it out and they turn against Cope, or there's a lot of potential direction for this to go. I don't think after their match on Dynasty we'll fully know where this is going to go. What's that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think what's probably going to happen is, in my opinion, Cope is 100% taking a shatter machine on Sunday. That's my prediction.
Okay. All right.
At some point, I don't know if it'll be in the middle of the match. I don't know if it'll be at the end of the match. I don't see FTR breaking up.
It would be weird.
Yeah, it'd be very weird. I don't see that happening.
It'd be weird, and like I don't think it would be good for either of their careers at this point. Like,
Right.
especially because I know that they kind of said like this is their last contract or whatever, and then they're done. Like, it'd be weird to do an FTR split at this point, and just yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I could maybe see happening is some kind of split where, like you said, it's Cash and Cope versus Dax and someone. And if I was to plug someone in, it would be a Christian Cage.
sure.
And somehow they build that feud up a little bit. And then at the end of that feud, we finally get the tag team of Cope and Christian back together for one final run, and FTR is back together in some way that makes sense. Because before Cope's final year, which I think is probably 2 to 3 years out, would be my guess. I think we have to get a Cope Christian run with
Yeah, I
the
don't even know
tag
if he's got that
titles.
much time to be honest, but yeah, I think they have to. There's got to be a moment where they reconcile finally, and
And I mean, I think it's,
uh,
if I do see that in the near future, I would say that's because the patriarchy does not seem quite as together as they once were. Um, so that's why I
good
somewhat see
segue.
maybe Christian uh, leaving or being exited from that group, which leads into the next segment where we did see the patriarchy, sans Christian, and they were approached by the crew backstage, seemingly to maybe get some assistance with the Top Flight and AR Fox situation, maybe bringing in uh, Nick Wayne to help him with that.
Yeah, it's as weird as this segment was. I thought it was actually really funny because it was just kind of like, "Hey, remember he had this beef with AR Fox?" And he's like, "Yeah, but that was a while ago, and we're over this now. Like, why are you coming to me about this?" It was like a
Right,
very realistic like depiction of like, "Oh yeah, like we already sorted this out. Like, why are you coming to me?" Like, it was it was that weird like level of awkwardness. And it was just like, "Oh yeah, this actually kind of makes sense and feels very like not scripted professional wrestling."
right.
And it kinda left you intrigued and like, "Where's this gonna go exactly?" Like, it gave you more questions than answers after it was all done. It was I liked it.
And I mean, Kip Sabian got a small speaking part as well for like the first time in, I think, in a good
I didn't even
while.
know he had vocal cords anymore.
um, but he did good. I think both of those guys are obviously great. Nick's super young, long time ahead of him, um,
Right.
and I think he still has things to show off, and I think that's a fun mix up if they did bring in uh, Nick Wayne with the crew, not necessarily as like a permanent member, but like just like associating with him, and even having Kip Sabian as like the guy on the side of the out ring side as well, against Top Flight, giving that face to heel ratio where more heels to interfere with the faces in that feud. So I think that makes sense. I think all of those guys
Yeah,
involved are really great. Um, and yeah,
I totally agree. Totally
uh,
agree. I'd love to see more of Nick Wayne and Kip in the ring, whether it's together, singles, whatever. Like, I feel
mhm.
like they really have been underutilized for a while now as wrestlers, and however we can get them in the ring or whatever, I'd be down with that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think I mentioned this before. I don't remember if it was in talking with you or if it was Smoke, where I feel like Nick and Billy had two different trajectories that did like very different things. Giving that, not just saying like they're two very young talents, but they were coming in, And I think like Billy's had more in ring use, but on ROH, like off TV. And Nick Wayne has had more TV time and less in ring time.
Right.
And it's like there's probably some better mix they probably could have landed on between the two of them, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what both of those people have in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And yeah, so next we had a fun match with Hologram and Blake Christian, which to me came out of nowhere. I think I saw like it announced like 15 minutes before the show. Like, where did this match come from? Not that I'm
Yeah,
disappointed.
I was definitely in my seat at the arena when I found out about it. So
Definitely not disappointed. Both of these talent
no,
are fantastic. And
I'm
yeah, I
I'm
think
I'm very happy that Blake Christian is getting more of a role in AEW and ROH and all of that. Like, I love that they're finally using him. It seems like he's basically been done with GCW for a while now, and like he kind of had that weird stint in the fall where he was kind of coming out with all like the marker all over his body, and that thing basically went nowhere. And like when he didn't wrestle at Hammerstein, that was pretty much like the indicator that like, yeah, it seems like Blake is probably pretty much done with GCW and is now they're finally going to be using him more in AEW. That he feels like he doesn't necessarily need to be, working both places. And I love it. He's a solid hand in the ring. I
mm-hmm.
wish we'd get to see more of what Blake does best is like the cocky heel stuff, and like we see a
Yeah,
little bit of that in the ring, but like when he came out, he just came out like a smug, generic heel. Like, granted, that wasn't shown on TV; it was just in the
right.
arena.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved his persona in GCW, where he was just a smartass who was telling people to suck it and like
Mm-hmm.
doing his taunts to people and like getting in people's faces. I know that's not really the AEW way, is to like get in the crowd's grill or whatever. But like,
Sure.
I wish we could see more of that like cocky, smug asshole that's Blake Christian, not just in the match, but outside of it a little bit more.
Right. No. No. And if you I didn't see there they did a social media post or like a exclusive online interview backstage interview where I think that did come across a little bit better.
Okay,
If you didn't get a chance to see that.
I
Um
have not.
uh and so I do think it's there. Definitely agree it probably could have been shown a little more. I think it did do a good job in the ring though of like him kind of mocking holograms flips with his own flips. Um
Yeah,
and I think that came across really well. And I think like this heel turn or heel persona for Blake Christian has just done him wonders. I remember
oh yeah,
watching
yeah,
him the first time, and I think it was a Super Card of Honor, maybe 2023 or 22, somewhere around there, one of those two. Um, where I was like, man, this guy's really good, but he has no personality.
right.
He was just a solid in ring hand. Uh, and I think since then he's learned how to do that a lot better, which is great.
Yeah, I think he's definitely grown a lot as an all-around performer. He used to just be like the flippy guy who, yeah, really didn't have much going on. Like even like he was in NXT for a little bit, and there was not really he was a guy who could do matches, but it just felt like the other side of wrestling never really clicked, and then he ended up getting released and going on a hell of a tear in GCW. And that's kind of when he
Mm-hmm.
figured it out, when he kind of became the heel who weaseled his way into winning the championship and like wasn't really welcomed in the community because he wasn't like a GCW wrestler. He wasn't like an extreme guy. He was just an asshole who just got the championship, eh, doing some bullshit.
Right.
And I feel like that's really when he kind of developed that more. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we'll get to see him more as a performer. I did like the one moment in the match where like I think he did like a flippy thing outside,
And then there was a fan who was like on the guardrail who like went for a high five, and Blake kind of just like kind of went up and then just kind of like no sold it completely. And I feel like that was like one of those cool moments, and I think I
Mhm.
want to see more of that kind of stuff. But yeah,
Right.
otherwise, tremendous match. Hologram is fantastic too. He was in the match also. I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like we're
yeah,
the only. I feel like we're the only podcast that talks about this match and doesn't really talk about Hologram at all. That just talks about how much we like Blake Christian.
uh, I mean, Hologram is a talent that I don't know. Maybe he gets not. I don't know how to say this. He gets talked about all the time because he is great, and it's like you can only gush on
Yeah,
him so much. Like,
that's true. That's
uh,
fair.
I how I guess good on him and good on Tony Khan for being like, at least this is the story that I've heard. How true it is, I don't know. Where Tony Khan's had this idea for a hologram character for years. He found whatever hologram when he was not hologram and was like, that's the guy.
Aramis?
Yeah, Aramis, and he's like, that's the guy. And through COVID and everything else, and then finally it's like Visa worked out, and we finally get hologram as a character on AEW television on what they called on the commentary the longest winning streak currently in AEW. So if I
Okay.
don't see hologram in that Owen Hart Cup,
You know,
uh,
you make a very good point there. Like, he should be in that, and if they don't, that's a crime. Like, really?
and that can be his first loss, because again, it's perfectly
Yeah,
fine
that's
for
fine.
him to lose in a competitive and like in that kind of environment.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would
Because
like to
like if
see.
they did like Hologram versus Will Ospreay in the first round or
Oh
something like
man,
that, or second round or whatever, like
sure,
imagine like getting that match.
yeah. Um, yeah, I love hologram obviously, and then with the integration of Harley Graham being around as well. Uh, I want to
It's a
see
fun.
hologram. I want to see him in a real feud, and they kind of have done some stuff with LFI and him and Commander. Uh,
Yeah.
that's where I want to see hologram more. But also, if they just put him out there to put on banger luchador matches, you know, every week, I'm okay with that too.
Right? Exactly. I totally agree with that. And like Harley Graham is great. Like he's a great fun character you can add to the mix on occasion. Like it doesn't need to be a regular thing. It doesn't need to be overdone.
Hmm.
It can just be like this fun thing like that they utilize from time to time or whatever. Um and yeah, I do agree though. It would be nice to see Harley Graham kind of. I mean, it feels like his yeah, LFI and Black or East Mortos, they've kind of had their long-winded feud, but it hasn't really felt like it's been like super substantial story-wise. It just kind
Right.
of happened. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the future for Hologram is. I just want to point out one thing on this match. That guardrail spot where they're both standing on the guardrail, and then he like does the Hurricane Rana was
Mm,
fucking awesome. That's such
yeah.
a sick spot. I don't think I've seen like a Hurricane Rana spot on the guardrail like that before. Yeah,
He's how he does some of the stuff he does doesn't make sense to me. Um, it just doesn't. Um,
like his tope is just how he gets like he flies like 30 feet. It feels like outside of like through the ropes outside the ring. Like I don't know
yeah,
how he goes that far. It doesn't make sense.
yeah, and I mean for him, he's like putting everything on the line for those dives because like he goes like face down, like head down, and he's like just
Yeah,
trusting the guy for one to hit where he's planning on hitting, and two the guy for the guy to catch him, whoever he's like hitting it with, uh, and to like properly stop him, because
yeah.
his dive's just out of this world.
If he ever wrestles the Miz, he's gonna be dead.
Miz will not catch him.
Yeah, let's hope that never happens. For many reasons. But next, we had a backstage segment between Thunder Rosa and Chris Statlander where they were both declaring themselves for the Women's Owen Hart tournament this year, which, again, just building up the story of absolutely stacked Owen Hart tournaments this year.
Yeah, big time.
And I'm a huge Statlander fan. I think Statlander is... I can't even say she's underrated, but she gives every woman on the roster their best match, and I say that with no jokes.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. She
Just
is the epitome of a good hand in the women's division. Like, she is just every time win, lose, whatever, she goes out there, gives the person a hell of a match. She doesn't, if she loses, it's not like, oh, well, she's buried now. Like, it doesn't matter. She's always going to be in that position where, like, she could easily win the Owen Hart tournament, even though she just lost against Megan Bayne, and like you wouldn't bat an eye at that thought. Like, yeah,
yeah,
she could easily win this. She could be in the women's title match at All In. That's totally believable. And I do like that promo. How she mentioned, like, I'm in a different spot this year than I was last year, because last year she was going through all that stuff with Willow and turning heel and all that. Like, I do like that they actually acknowledged, like, that she acknowledged that, like, yeah, I'm a different person than I was then, and like saying that's why she lost the tournament last year and whatever, and like all of that makes a whole lot of sense. And I love when they're willing to dive into past things, even in like the AR Fox feud with Nick Wayne, like all of that stuff that happened in the past. They're not just saying, "Oh no, don't worry about that stuff that happened a year ago." Like, they're bringing
right,
it back up again, which is refreshing in a landscape where so much of wrestling is just it happens and then it goes away.
yeah. No, I think this is AEW's biggest strength and weakness is exactly what you're talking about. In that, if you were to introduce someone to AEW who doesn't know wrestling, or is like has never seen AEW, has never seen like people from AEW, only lived in like maybe a WWE realm or whatever else. If you were just like watch the segment from Wednesday where Hangman was like, "Hey, I'm going after the Owen and I'm gonna win the championship," and like Swerve comes down and was like, "You're not winning that championship. I'm winning the championship because like." And someone's like, "Okay, can you explain why these two guys hate each other?" And you're like, "All right, well, let me pull out the PowerPoint presentation for the last 3 years of wrestling." Because
Yeah,
nothing.
it was right. Well, we were talking, and then I think there was somebody that was looking for like a history of Tony Storm and Mariah May's feud,
Mhm.
and to show somebody else to get them interested in the feud, and it's just like, where do you even start with all of that? Because it's just there's so many, like, there's hours that go into this backstory instead of just like, ah, well, this thing happened and they don't like each other now. It's way more complicated and convoluted. And it's a story told over a year that you can't just sum up in like a 5-minute YouTube video.
Right. I think that's to your point. I think it's like Statlander. You're like, okay, well, yeah, Statlander is she's in a different spot than she was a year ago, because then she was kind of a little bit angry at not being in the spotlight and Willow getting the spotlight. And now she's like turned her life around to be a better person. It's like that's kind of like a high level look at that, but doesn't
Yeah,
really tell you the history of Statlander, which I think is really good.
yeah. I mean, she's an alien, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
So
she at
yeah,
one point she was an alien, uh, uh, and
you're
then
telling me she's not an alien anymore? I don't know.
well, she doesn't claim to be, at least as far as I know.
Fair.
Um,
She's integrated into human society that you can't really tell that she's an alien anymore.
exactly. And on the other half of this interview was Thunder Rosa, mostly just saying She's entering the Owen Hart tournament and going to be fighting for that title. Yeah, I mean, I think it was again, we're stacking up this women's tournament with former champions. Um,
The people that need to be in it are being in it.
yeah, we'll see what the bracket turns out to be, but if it is like 8 people, like you're talking about the top 8 people, sans Tony Storm, uh, probably not Mariah May, but we'll see. I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel
and the
like
spots are filling up pretty quick, but
yeah,
Mariah
if
May wouldn't make sense to be in it, but who knows?
right, I think I don't have the numbers offhand, but I feel like around 6 women have declared for the Owen at this point, 6 or 7 maybe. So spots are slim. But then finally we get into the main event of the night, which is of course Jamie Hayter versus Billy Starks, and I mean Jamie Hayter has just one of the best themes in my opinion.
Oh, that's a banger.
I absolutely love the hard style, just rave, and looking forward to the Hayter rave coming out.
Yeah.
Mikey Ruckus. But yeah, and then we have these two, which obviously ties into the whole story of the night. With again the Owen Hart the centralization around the Owen Hart, which includes both Jamie and Billy, and then obviously the Athena tie-in as well afterwards. But how did this match come across? This was a collision, which collision's not abnormal for women to main event necessarily, as much as Dynamite historically. We've had a few women's collision main events. This was a really good showing in my opinion, and just of this whole show being so female focused in terms of a show.
Yeah, I mean, for a match that we didn't know was going to be happening, how it was happening, it came off really well. I don't think the crowd was like super familiar with Billy Starks. Kind of didn't get like much of a reaction. I think Jamie Hayter got a much better reaction, but then like they kind of were playing the match where like Hayter was being the heel in it in a way, like, the more aggressor of the two.
Sure.
Um, uh, Doing the underhanded tactics that she needed to win the match. But I mean, it was a good match. It was very solid, nice 10-minute main event or so, and it wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, this is gonna be on Jamie Hayter's highlight reel necessarily, but I mean it was a good match, and the finisher was phenomenal. The whatever you
Like
want to call it, the
a springboard
second rope.
haterade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Like
call that out.
the Trish Stratus bulldog, but a clothesline. Like it was pretty sick.
Yeah, I was gonna call that. It's like while maybe the match doesn't get on the highlight reel, that finish for sure does because it looked great.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looked strong. Obviously the haterade of like the just the lariat, the spin around lariat looks good, but I think adding that springboard off of it just makes it look that much stronger. And it was like you could say like, oh, it took that to take down Billy, which is also a good show for her.
It took a super finisher to take her down, which is great. And
Yeah,
then at the end you got the Athena face off, and I don't know when it cut off on the feed, but like obviously this sets up so like, hey, if Owen Hart, Jamie Hayter, and Athena could collide into each other, and now it's got a little bit of a story to it,
mm-hmm.
and then I don't know if it was on TV or not, but then like Billy Starks came to the back, and Athena was just, or Billy Starks kind of came to where Athena was, and then Athena was just like, you could tell that she was really disappointed in Billy, and there's other layers, added to the
Sure.
whole thing as well, and Billy was kind of like, went for like kind of like a hug, and Athena just kind of walked away from her. So it's kind of a nice little build into it that I think Collision had ended at that point. That
Yeah, I
it
don't
wasn't
think that came across. I think on TV it was mostly just Athena and Jamie going back and forth. I
Okay.
don't. Maybe they'll supercut that to social media or something, uh, or a highlight for next week or something. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this
Or maybe it was
episode,
just for the arena. But
yeah,
either
maybe,
way, it was a nice it was a nice thing that was just like this totally makes sense. Like Athena would be really disappointed in Billy
hmm
for losing that match. Like this was Athena setting up like Billy, you need to win this, and Billy lost. So obviously build another some more tension between the two.
right, exactly. So it's like looking forward at this episode was I would say 55% women, uh, in terms of at least
Probably, yeah.
the highlight notes, um, and which was it's just a great change. Having this, maybe not, we don't need it all the time, but I think every once in a while having just like a reminder of like, look how deep our women's roster is, um, and all of them are super talented and can do a wide variety of stuff. So I think seeing that is really good. I think looking forward to seeing what this Owen Hart Cup tournament looks like. My prediction for that reveal is going to have Athena and Mercedes on opposite sides of the bracket. Uh, I think I could see a. I don't know where Billy lands. I think Billy would make sense to be on the side with Athena,
Sure.
um, meaning that they would maybe face each other in like the semifinals or something like that if it came to that.
Okay.
Um, and I mean the rest of the spots can be kind of whoever, but I think the final is probably going to be Athena versus Mercedes.
Uh, it's the only thing that runs into is then one of them has to win it, and then they wouldn't be facing each other at all in. So that would be the
I guess
only
that's
like
true. So it's I guess it
stopgap there.
yeah
I don't
yeah I
know.
guess that's a good point, but I feel like that's the start, that's the money match, for lack
Oh
of,
yeah.
for no pun intended. Uh, unless a curveball gets thrown in there somewhere that we just don't expect right now. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like we're gonna get a. I don't. Man, it's hard to predict at this point. It really is.
yeah, we'll just have to, I think, hold out till Wednesday for those brackets to get released.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that'll. I think at that point everything will make a lot more sense and to see how it's gonna play out. But it's so hard right now because there's just so the women's division and the men's division are both really deep that like I can see them going a few different ways. Obviously, there are the ways that you think that like the men's one could go. But man, they could throw a curveball and it wouldn't be a like a jump the shark moment.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, but yeah, I think that anything else you want to call out for this episode before we wrap things up?
I don't think so. I mean, I had a lot of fun at the show. The ROH tapings afterwards were pretty sick. The main event was Lee Moriarty versus AR Fox for the ROH Pure Championship, and that ended up being a really solid match. I recommend when that pops up on Honor Club that people check it out. And even TK after the show came out and was saying like encouraging the crowd to do AR Fox chants and like give it up for AR Fox. Like he did that like 4 times. And and definitely like put AR Fox over in a big way. So if
Yeah,
AR Fox had like heat in the office from the incident a few years ago, like that's
right.
definitely not a thing that he's holding a grudge about anymore. Tomohiro Ishii wrestled a match on ROH. against Preston Vance, which that was fun. Just because like it's like 10 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden Tomohiro Ishii is coming out of like not announced or anything like that. It's just like, oh, okay, this is. I guess we're seeing an Ishii match. Like fly Ishii over just to do a collision match versus Preston Vance. Like, what is going on here? How did these things happen? Like,
It's
I spent
it
most
tr-
of my match dumbfounded thinking about it. But
it truly is like the logistics behind wrestling shows. I'm still amazed by sometimes when thinking about it, because obviously flying people in for matches makes sense, right? Uh, Flying a few extra people just in case something breaks down makes sense.
right, flying in Billy Starks just in case Queen Aminata can't do the match or whatever,
Right. Um, Flying someone in to do a backstage promo, I'm like, okay, I guess I
Yeah, it's a
get
little
that.
weird. Yeah.
But yeah, just the logistics of that I think is funny sometimes.
Oh yeah,
But
I spend a lot of time thinking about that when I'm watching shows, and like especially like Megan Bain was supposed to be at GCW in Chicago last night, and like they like pulled her from the card like a week ago, and I'm like, oh, she's gonna be at Collision, and then I'm thinking like, oh, I mean, obviously I had an idea that she was gonna be there,
right,
like what role she'd play in it, especially when they announced the Tony Storm segment, but I was just like, huh, that's really interesting that like obviously they were going to let her do GCW, but then they're like, oh no, we're going to have her come in for this, and it's just like, are they gonna or like? And then I'm thinking like, are they actually going to use Megan Bain? Are they not going to use Megan Bain? Like, how shitty would that be to like pull them from the other show that they were going to do in wrestling a match, and then have them come in and just sit in catering and like I'm thinking about all this weird like little micromanaging stuff that doesn't matter at the end of the day. But I agree. I think way too much about like the logistics and the planning phases of all this.
it truly is just a different world of thing that
Yeah.
I'm sure it all makes sense, but it's wild. Anyway, well,
It really is.
it's been a long episode here. I think great opening segments talking about some history of AEW, as well as some background knowledge of Kevin Knight. Thanks for that, Brent.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
and thanks for being on the episode. Thanks for all of you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully see you on the next Modcast. Anything else you
Yeah,
would
thanks.
call out, Brent, before we wrap up?
No, I think we're all good. Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and looking forward to seeing those brackets on Wednesday. Have a good
Let's
one, everyone.
go.